All right, welcome to the first ever Two Guys with Questionable Credentials podcast with your hosts, Adam and Tom. Tom, how are you doing today?
I'm all right. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm living the dream. Dreams are nightmares, nightmares are dreams, but we kind of go with it.
They always say that it's someone's dream. May not be mine, but it's somebody's.
That's fair, that's fair. So, just starting off, this is a brand new podcast. We are looking just to kind of have conversations about our favorite sci-fi topics. Hopefully, you guys come along for the ride. But overall, we're not planning on being too serious. We're not planning on being critical, but we just like to have something that everyone can maybe relate to.
Long pause.
Yes, those long, awkward pauses, something that you usually have in sci-fi moments right before something absolutely horrible happens. So here we go.
Someone will edit those out. I don't know. I mean, I think we've talked before the idea of we are, when it comes to most sci-fi topics, we are, we know too much for normal people, but for people that spend a long time in these spaces, think we're morons.
That's right. Yeah, I've never been to a Comic-Con. I don't hang out on those deep, dark posts on forums online that go down the rabbit holes. But I just like the content. I like science fiction, Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, just to name a few. Just know, like Tom said, we know just enough to be dangerous, but not enough where we could actually probably go toe to toe with any of these, the hardcore fans that will look for anything that they can to, get into any kind of discussion with.
Well, that sounds like a great starting on point. I'll admit I've been on a hardcore Star Wars kick lately. And this works out because I think if I talk to my wife about the Galactic Civil War or anything Star Wars one more time, I'm going to end up in a divorce or on the couch. So, what should we? What do you want to talk about? Should we like characters, stories, movies?
Let's just kind of ease into things. I think let's Tom, what would you pick for let's stick with Star Wars right now because it seems like you have a little bit of an axe to grind on that. If you had to pick one of the 11 movies, which one would be your favorite?
Well, my favorite.
And yes, I know there's probably the 11's not the magic number before anyone calls us out on it, or at least calls me out on it.
Oh, I didn't even think about the unnumbered movies.
Oh, that's right. You have Rogue One, you have Solo. There's other ones out there.
But not to get on a tangent, but man, Solo, I think I've only seen it once, but man, that movie got way too much hate. I think
it did too.
I mean, again, I don't know. I mean, I've only watched it once, so maybe that's saying something that I've never gone back. But so for me, my favorite has always been Return of the Jedi.
Okay, yeah, go with the fan favorite. Well, maybe the second fan favorite because I think Empire is always the top one on a lot of people's list. But Return of the Jedi, why does it stand out for you?
So I always, I still, when I watch that movie, I think about when I was a kid watching the re-release with my father, and just the chills, the excitement of the opening fight over the Sarlacc pit. I like green is my favorite color, and just the shot of Luke front flipping back onto the skiff or whatever that is, and igniting his lightsaber, and then for the most part kicking pretty serious butt. I know when you rewatch, I rewatched them recently, and there's a lot of um kicks that don't connect, and of course, um Boba Fett being the most serious bounty hunter, but or the best bounty hunter, but yet in that movie kind of looks like a chump. Um, I don't know. It's always stood out. It's always stood out to me when I think Star Wars. That movie is the first one I think about. Well, how about you, Adam?
See, I'm gonna say something that's probably gonna, I don't know, maybe upset a whole bunch of people, but my favorite is actually Rogue One.
Okay.
I take a different approach to Star Wars. I do growing up. I love the sci-fi aspect of it, the ships, the fights, the Force, the lightsabers, and everything. But you know, as my interests have progressed, going to the college political science background, Rogue One is just I think it's the most human of all the Star Wars movies. You don't have you do have the Force that is constantly a presence because you can't have Star Wars without that. But it's just a group of people who are fighting for something that they believe in. They all have demons, and they're all trying to really take the rebellion up to the next notch, which then leads directly into A New Hope. And that is why I know we're talking movies at this point, but that also is why Andor is my favorite series because along really a lot of the same things, a lot of the same themes. I think it's I've read multiple times and I've seen a few other podcasts that just say that Rogue One and Andor are Star Wars for grown-ups. So that's my take on it. But to your point with Solo's kind of along those lines, though I think my criticism of that movie is I think they try to do too much with just the amount of time that runtime that was in that movie. I think the concept was very good. I liked the characters and the character development, but there was a lot going on.
And if I recall, didn't that movie wasn't that one of the first times like Disney cut a project up and did a bunch of reshoots right in the middle of it? I thought I remember hearing about that, and I know I remember talking to friends about it, and honestly, so I'll be honest. I don't want to be too critical because, like I said, I've only seen it once. But the one thing that stood out to me was I remember seeing articles talking about how it was going to be oh yeah, Han Solo's not his real name. We're going to give you the origin of Han Solo's identity, and it was just, what's your name? Han, no last name. Han, Solo. Oh wow, but
Swing and a miss there.
but to Rogue One, I forget how good that is, and honestly, the trend it sets, where now, every series has to have a hallway fight scene. You got Vader and on the I can't remember the name of the ship. You have Obi
Admiral
Wan.
Radisson's flagship.
Yeah, and then you have obviously Luke Skywalker on the Mandalorian, and you have Obi Wan in the Inquisitor, Fortress Inquisitor in his series. I still actually have not seen Andor, not out of any sort of disdain. I know that I hear great things about it, and I hear like the conflict among fans where everyone's they either love it or they hate it, and they don't think it's Star Wars or whatever. And honestly, it's just that I'm a simp, I guess. For me, you put Jedi or Mandalorians, even before like the show The Mandalorian, is what really like hooked me and drew me to Star Wars. Someday I'm gonna watch it. I genuinely like. I'm just so bad. I'm one of those people where I hyper focus on something and then I just have to ride that wave while I'm on it, I guess. So, so those are the favorites. What do you think is the best Star Wars movie?
The best in what context?
Probably like overall received. Like or like for me, I thought about it, and my first thought was Empire because I'm sure that,
That's my first thought too.
but following up on, or not following up, I guess maybe an honorable mention, Revenge of the Sith.
I completely agree with that.
You know, there's there's a lot of problems with Revenge of the Sith. I mean, I would argue one of them being that other than maybe four actors, everybody looks like they don't want to be there. Um, like like you know, Ewan McGregor, um, Ian McDermott, I'm trying to think who else, and a handful of others. They're like they're great actors, but it's kind of even more exemplified by the fact that a lot of the other actors look like they just don't care, or like and like maybe that's a statement on the Jedi and their emotionless, how they're emotionless. But I don't know. Like I remember a little side note when I saw Thor: Love and Thunder. I posted on Twitter, X, whichever you prefer, about it, and I said three things. I said one was that I thought Christian Bale was terrifying. I thought the soundtrack was good, and that, I guess Natalie Portman can act if she chooses to. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just too critical of Natalie Portman.
Well, I guess that we can be on that one. But I agree with a lot of that. What you said. I can't speak to Thor because I have not watched that movie. But Empire comes to mind as probably the best Star Wars movie, and I'm not just saying that because that's for a lot of people the obvious answer. But you take A New Hope, and it's a great movie, and then Empire comes out, and it just takes it up that next notch. The storyline is very good. It takes you on a journey. There's lots of twists and turns. The obvious one, of course. But then, you have Revenge of the Sith, where you're coming out of the Clone Wars, and there's so much that needs to be done to tie it into the original trilogy. And I think George Lucas and the writers hit the mark on that one, where you have to have Anakin fully turning to the dark side with Vader, the formation of the Empire, all the transitions that need to start, where they, at the end of the movie, you have that. And it closes out the prequel trilogy in a very good way. Now, there's a lot of criticism of that movie, and I could definitely agree with a lot of it, but it definitely runs a close second for me behind Empire. But then as also, you have so many projects that have come out in the last few years that all springboard off of that movie. You have Kenobi. You have the Bad Batch. You have all those Tales of the Empire, Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Underworld. All that comes out of Revenge of the Sith. Without that movie, you could not have all those other things.
Not to mention the not to mention the final season of the Clone Wars.
Yes.
Particularly, I think it's a 3-episode arc that follows where it's like Ahsoka and her like side quill to Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
And I think and that whole show, the Clone Wars, I mean, the beginning is a little wonky animation wise, but they really like towards the end, like that's good TV. It really exemplifies the issues with like the Star Wars universe.
Mm-hmm.
I think particularly in that season 7 when Mace Windu like disregards Ahsoka because he's like, this is Jedi business, and I'm like, not sad what's about to happen to you.
Yeah.
But and then I think this is only me, because I think I am one of maybe, I'll be generous, maybe it's 100. I have a guilty pleasure Star Wars movie. And that movie has to be The Rise of Skywalker. Now, I'll be very clear at the get-go, because I've said this since I saw it in theaters. I know it's not a good movie. I know that, like, when if you break it down, if we sat here and tried to like analyze it, scene by scene, plot points, etc. Like, I know it's like it's bad, but like, I don't know, it's something about it. When I sit down and I watch that movie, my brain just shuts off. Like, I shut off. I just I sit there for 2 hours, however long it is. I enjoy it. I enjoy it. Every time I watch it, I find more problems with it. But I don't know. It's just something about it. Maybe it's because I love Daisy Ridley. Maybe that kid, and Adam Driver. My wife is sometimes jealous of the love I have for Adam Driver, but and just like that, half of the fandom has turned off, and I'm sorry, Adam. Probably, maybe not. Who knows?
I don't know.
But then again, I saw a post the other day talking a Star Wars video, and someone said there's only 6 Star Wars movies, and I don't know. I'd like to think someday we'll reach a point where suddenly they're like, well, I guess the sequel trilogy got more hate than it should have.
And that's going to happen.
Nostalgic eyes are look fonder on history.
I would think that, it has taken about 10 years post prequel trilogy for people to go back and say, all right, yeah, they're not the original trilogy, but they were good. And I think that's going to happen with the sequel trilogy. It might take a little bit longer. Who only knows? Maybe it's going to take another project for Lucasfilms to come out with that's even worse than those. I saw all 3 in theaters. I gave them their due. I think that they tried to do way too much. There was too many side stories going on, rather than just trying to focus on what you needed to do.
I'll have someday here. I'll have to go back through and rewatch all 3. But I remember thinking at the time, with all the issues with casting and or like finding directors, like J.J. Abrams, like he took episode 7, and like, it might be a horrible analogy, but like in my mind, I'm like, he took it and he was like, all right, I'm building a house. And then Rian Johnson came in and said, actually, it's not a house, it's a barn. and then last minute, 30 days before the building's supposed to be done, they brought oh crap, what's his name? I just said it.
This is the part where we know just enough to be dangerous.
Why can't I think of his name all of a sudden? I just said he directed episode 7. I don't know. Either way, it doesn't matter. Because this is either I'm either really smart or really dumb, and it's probably the latter. But, anyways.
I think of those 3 movies, episode 7 and episode 9 are tied for the best. I think you have episode 8. The Last Jedi was the worst of them, in my opinion. But
someday we'll have to devote like a whole episode to talking about the sequels, because I have
to go back and rewatch them.
I have come around on episode 8. When I first saw it in theaters, I liked it. And then the more I thought about it, I wasn't sure. Then I hated it. Then I've watched a lot of videos talking about it, and there's a YouTube channel. I'll have to send you the video. It's called Cinema Therapy, and they talk about just like the journey of Luke Skywalker and how the way they break it down, it makes sense why Luke went like the way Luke's character went down the way he did. I mean, I don't blame people that don't like it, because I am currently I've been going through a lot of Legends continuity, and I could see why people that were expecting that Luke Skywalker were very unhappy with the Last Jedi Luke. But again, I think that's a conversation that deserves its own dedicated.
No, I agree with you on that. I think if we need to pick out something about Star Wars that we don't like, I think that's whenever we need to actually come in with our points and research, because unlike some content out there which we don't want to duplicate at all, you could easily go down that rabbit hole of something about Star Wars that you absolutely don't like, and these are the reasons why you don't like it. You got to build a case for it. We're not going to quite do that. We just want to give our personal opinions on why we feel something is not up to what we thought it was going to be, or what we think it's not up to the standards of what the franchise should have been. To me, there was 2 good points of episode 8, and that was Yoda and BB-8. That's it. For me. And I can get all the hate that you want out there for that, but I've watched it once in theaters, I've watched it once at home. That's it. I will go back and give it its due again before we have any further discussion on it. That's kind of where we're at. I think, Lucasfilms, whenever, the last couple years, they've come out with all their streaming service, TV series. I think that's, they've done a really good job with those, with one exception, in my opinion. And I'm not going to get into that today. But, The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and even the animated ones, Bad Batch, Season 7 of the Clone Wars, Book of Boba Fett, all those, have been, there's a couple issues that I have with them, but overall the content has been very good. My personal philosophy on it is that I think in all of the Star Wars content, they're like each project, there is some good in it, something where we can say, I don't like this movie, but that was cool, or I like this, or this action scene is great, or but and you and I are going to have our disagreements on this, because some things that I like about the movies are going to be things that you don't like, or vice versa. There's 7 billion people on this planet, and the 5 billion that have seen Star Wars in some shape or form are all going to have their difference of opinions on things, and that's shaped by our cultures, our history, and all that. We like things for different reasons, and that's what we would like this podcast to be. We're not going to focus on one subject. It might, starting out, we're going to be a little bit more Star Wars focused right now, and then we're going to maybe talk about Star Trek. We might talk about Battlestar Galactica. We might take a complete left turn and talk about the Tremors movies and who only knows what else. But
I'd like to have somebody come on sometime and talk about things I don't know. Like I'd love to get into the Doctor Who universe, but I'm a completionist type of guy, and I'm just like I can't go that far back.
No, I mean, Doctor Who, you need to devote probably about 2 years of your life to look back and watch all the series to understand everything. I also believe that, if I'm going to talk about a subject, or I'm going to talk about movies or any part of the sci-fi universe, I want to be able to know what I'm talking about a little bit. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, let's talk about Doctor Who today. And I'm then like, oh yeah, this guy flies around in a phone booth. Well, by me saying that, I probably just offended about every person in Britain, but, because yes, I know it's a TARDIS and everything. I'm dumbing myself down a little bit, but,
I saw a TARDIS the other day.
Did you?
I was driving through, I was somewhere between Afton, New York, and Binghamton, and
if you're going to find a working public phone booth, that's probably somewhere in the United States where it's going to be.
Yeah, it was. Someone told me it was in the middle of a field somewhere, and maybe it was, and it got moved. But I saw it was in someone's front yard, and I was like, "That's
right. That is an area of this country that time has forgot, and it is absolutely charming to go there some days, and then it's absolutely infuriating other days. And no offense to anyone who lives there, we are not that far away. In another part of the country that time has forgotten. Right now, if you maybe listen into the background too much, you're going to hear the AOL dial-up grinding on the modem.
Well, I think we're at about 28 minutes, assuming that none of this gets edited. So I guess I don't know how you want to wrap this up. This first episode, I guess, hopefully one of many.
Yeah, one of many. I really hope so. This is our introductory episode. We're definitely open to feedback as we move forward. Don't be too critical on us. We're just two guys with a lot of unqualified credentials doing this. This is just a conversation that we're having, and we hope that maybe it'll make you think of things maybe a little bit differently too. I don't think we really have a sign off or anything at this point, but hopefully anyone join us for episode 2, The Search for More Money. And I say that just because I am really excited for Spaceball 2s to come out at some point. I think that is part of the sci-fi universe. As many as diehard fans would be like Spaceballs and hissing at it and trying to put curses on it and everything else. But you know what? Mel Brooks, what a genius. Whenever it comes to absolutely taking something that someone absolutely loves and just beating it over the head with a club and making it just that slapstick funny comedy.
All right. Well, on that note, I guess we will wrap this up, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
All right. right, welcome to the first ever Two Guys with Questionable Credentials podcast with your hosts, Adam and Tom. Tom, how are you doing today?
I'm all right. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm living the dream. Dreams are nightmares, nightmares are dreams, but we kind of go with it.
They always say that it's someone's dream. May not be mine, but it's somebody's.
That's fair. That's fair. So, just starting off, this is a brand new podcast. We are looking just to kind of have conversations about our favorite sci-fi topics. Hopefully, you guys come along for the ride. But overall, we're not planning on being too serious. We're not planning on being critical, but we just like to have something that everyone can maybe relate to.
Long pause.
Yes, those long, awkward pauses, something that you usually have in sci-fi moments right before something absolutely horrible happens. So here we go.
Someone will edit those out. I don't know. I mean, I think we've talked before the idea of we are, when it comes to most sci-fi topics, we are, we know too much for normal people, but for people that spend a long time in these spaces, think we're morons.
That's right. Yeah, I've never been to a Comic-Con. I don't hang out on those deep, dark posts on forums online that go down the rabbit holes. But I just like the content. I like